All right, welcome back, Focus Learners, to another explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we are embarking on a fascinating global market tour. We're zeroing in specifically on the global dynamics for nylon 6 and nylon 66 for the second week of August 2026. If you've been keeping an eye on polymer markets lately, you know things are shifting rapidly. We're going to break down exactly what's going on, region by region, using the latest real-time data, and distill the whole thing into clear, actionable insights. Let's dive right in. Right out of the gate, we're facing a massive tug of war. Picture this. On one side, raw material feedstock costs are rising aggressively. On the exact opposite side, downstream global demand is just totally stalling out. It's cost-push inflation going head-to-head with demand-pull stagnation. So the big question, which force is actually going to win out this week? So let's start with section 1, the global nylon market setup. Let's establish our baseline, starting right at the source with China's feedstock markets. Right now, caprolactam is sitting at 11,800 RMB per metric ton, and adipic acid is hovering right at 8,300 RMB. Now, these numbers are absolutely crucial. Why? Because they act as the bedrock, the foundation propping up production costs globally. When these inputs hold firm or worse start climbing, it sends a massive ripple effect across polymer pricing worldwide. And man, speaking of ripple effects, look at this massive jump, 185 euros per metric ton. That is the August contract price settlement increase for European benzene. It's wild, right? It perfectly illustrates the severe, undeniable cost pressures mounting on manufacturers right now. Just imagine trying to keep your polymer prices stable when one of your main upstream chemicals surges by nearly 200 euros a ton in a single month. That's the intense reality producers are wrestling with as we head into mid-August. All right, moving westward, let's see how this is playing out in the Western markets, specifically the USA and Europe. Let's look at the US market first. For PA6, adipic acid supply was super tight, and cyclohexene prices absolutely skyrocketed, up a staggering 94 cents a gallon. Because of that, PA6 prices were basically forced up 11 cents, landing at 140 cents per pound. Meanwhile, PA66 faced its own hurdles, with caprolactam jumping 11 cents a pound, which pushed the final PA66 price up 5 cents to 174 cents a pound. But here's the kicker. Demand for both was completely, utterly dull. Nobody is buying, yet prices went up anyway. It just proves that in the US right now, prices are being strictly dictated by raw material constraints, not by buyer appetite. Basically, the tail is wagging the dog. Now, let's contrast that with what's happening over in Europe. Again, demand across the board is totally sluggish, just dull, but the outcomes completely split. For PA6, it totally caved to that massive benzene pressure we talked about a minute ago, rising 50 euros to hit 2,150 euros a metric ton. But PA66, the price stayed entirely stable at 2,790 euros. How does that happen? Well, local supply was abundant. The big takeaway here is that while cost pressures are universal, having a ton of local supply can act like a giant shock absorber, keeping prices flat, even when raw materials are surging. Let's pivot and check out Section 3, Eastern markets covering China and India. So here's a quick snapshot of the China Bazaar dynamics. For PA6, there are basically zero supply issues, and those feedstock prices we noted earlier are providing really firm cost support. But for PA66, plant run rates have actually ramped up, meaning there's even more supply hitting the market. But here's the absolute critical takeaway. Even with stable or growing supply, buyers are playing pure defense. Purchases across both PA6 and PA66 in China are strictly need-based. They aren't hoarding, they aren't stocking up, they are literally only buying what they absolutely must have to run their machines today. Drilling down a bit further into the Indian bazaar, let's look at some exact micro-level spot prices. By the way, these are ex-GST numbers. For PA6, we're seeing a range of 218 to 220 rupees per kg in Mumbai, compared to 222 to 225 rupees in Delhi. For PA66, it's 330 to 332 rupees in Mumbai versus 335 to 338 in Delhi. If you look closely, you'll notice a structural pattern here. The Delhi market is consistently commanding a slight premium over Mumbai for both polymers. And hey, if you're trading in these regions, these little micro fluctuations are exactly the kind of nuances you've got to be tracking. Which brings us to Section 4, the buying pulse and our final verdict. Without a doubt, the phrase of the week, which we've seen popping up all over the map, is need-based buying. If you aren't familiar, this simply means purchasing material only to fulfill immediate, concrete manufacturing requirements, rather than building up your inventory. Look, in a highly volatile market where prices are being artificially pumped up by feedstocks instead of real demand, sitting on heavy inventory is a huge risk. Need-based buying is, for sure, the absolute smartest playbook you can use this week. And that leads us right to the official purchase opinion from our data source. They state quite clearly, weak demand might pull open bazaar prices downwards, so we suggest need-based buying. The logic here is pretty much airtight. Even with raw material costs pushing prices up, the sheer gravity of that weak downstream demand could absolutely drag open bazaar prices right back down. If you buy heavily right now, you might literally be catching a falling knife. Stay on defense. Just buy what you need exactly when you need it. All right, our final section, instant data access via Polymer Bazaar. So, how do you stay ahead of all this? Enter Polymer Bazaar. They provide instant access to polymer prices, market news, price revisions, forecasts, and yes, even official company price lists. And they deliver all of this in under 5 seconds, available 24/7. It's honestly an incredibly powerful resource for anyone trying to navigate these rapid day-to-day micro fluctuations without losing their mind. And getting access is incredibly, ridiculously simple. Step 1, just save their WhatsApp chatbot number to your phone. That's +91 93746 24365. Step 2, open your chat and literally just message the phrase, "What's up, PA6?" Step 3, you instantly get real-time bazaar data, pricing, and predictions sent directly to your chat. It is really that easy to gain a massive competitive advantage right from your pocket. Which brings us to one final thought for today's explainer. In a market totally driven by volatile feedstocks and incredibly dull demand, are you executing a real data-driven strategy, or are you just guessing? When costs are surging and demand is flatlining, your gut intuition just isn't enough anymore. You need structured, real-time data to protect those margins. I highly recommend using the insights and tools we went over today to really master the global nylon market. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, Focus Learners. Keep studying the data, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.